When the shooting was ongoing, and Michael was being shot dead here, and I was across the street and didn't know. And that's when I crossed the street, then came back in, and that's when we found out that Michael had been shot. Behind that little wall there, directing them what to do. So the soldiers came from that direction there, from Great Danger Street, and travelled up here. Any watch the footage on the touchscreens of the day itself? You see two vehicles coming in, and one actually stops here, and that's where the main killers got out of, and ran through this little wall and started firing towards the barricade, and that's where Michael was standing. But on the day itself, I'll tell you a story about my mother. Michael, when he was a young 3-year-old boy, seriously ill, became seriously ill. He picked up a virus, she moved his brain, and he went into a coma in 3 weeks. I remember well that morning, we actually knelt around the bed, we said the rosary, hoping that he would survive. So he was taken to the hospital, and the doctor said there was no hope for him. And even the local priest said to my mother to give him up to God, but she refused to do so. So he lay in the hospital for 3 weeks, in a coma. And my mother used to travel backwards and forwards, and there was no money in them days. She couldn't afford the bus or anything. She walked it from here to the waterside twice a day to visit her son. And she refused to give up on him. And he came round. Okay? And that in itself was a miracle. So she became more or less more protected. By the way, I come from a big family. I have 9 sisters. Okay? 9 sisters. So I know all about women. Okay? And I had 2 brothers, Michael being one of them. So my mother became more or less more protective of Michael because of what he went through. So on the day of Bloody Sunday that morning, he asked her, could he go in the march? Now he was a 17-year-old boy. You imagine these guys asking your mother, sorry to walk down the street. So she refused at the beginning, but then eventually she relented because of the fact that people like myself and others were saying to him, let him go, he's going to make a mammy's boy out of him and so on. So she did allow him to go. But what she did, she followed him to keep an eye on him. I was at the march, didn't give a shit about me, but there you go. I'm only joking. So she followed him and tried to keep an eye on him. But she lost sight of him. And what she did, her sister lived in that flat there, that little apartment, her sister. So what she went into that flat, and she stood looking out the window to see if she could see Michael. And at one time she did see him, and she shouted out to him, but he didn't hear her because of the noise around the place. And he ran on towards the barricade. The soldiers arrived. Soldier F stood there while my mother was looking out that window and shot her son dead. But she wouldn't have known. She wouldn't have known. So when she went home afterwards, she was told that Michael had been shot, but he was okay. He was shot in the ankle. And she lived in hope until we came home. We had to tell her that Michael was dead. And from that moment in time onwards, she went into a state of mind. She closed down. And she was no good. She couldn't even look after herself or the rest of the children in the house. And some of our family the girls had to move back into the house to help rear the way. On the night that he was brought home from the hospital, he was laid out in his coffin. About 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, my mother came running into the room where Michael was laid out and bodily lifted him out of the coffin, crying, son, Michael's son, Michael's son. We had to push him back in again. She caught us completely unawares. And even at times afterwards, she was actually seen walking towards the cemetery with a blanket on her arm. And she was asked, where was she going with the blanket? She says, Michael will be cold today because there's snow on the ground. I'm going to put it around his grave to keep him warm. So she doesn't even remember doing those things for 5 years. So we thought we were going to lose her as well. But eventually she came around and she survived. And I would have said would have been another victim of Bloody Sunday. But she did come around and she lived until 2004. She seen the start of the inquiry, the second inquiry. She didn't see the end. But she died in 2004. But prior to her dying, I said to her, as she lay there, Ma, Michael has been declared innocent. So told her a lie. Then I said, "What's a lie?" It's the truth. So she went to your grave happy. You know. So my mother was only about that size there, small little red-haired woman, and that's it. And she had a great temperament. She loved her children, and everybody was treated exactly the same. So everyone was brought up with total respect for people and so on. So that was the story of my mother. And again, she's lying up in the cemetery, and she's along with her son, in the same grave, along with my dad as well. So the three of them are actually buried together, and probably she's fighting for my dad at the moment, because my dad liked his pint, you see, so there's always murder in the house. But that gives you an idea of what happened here, and how it affected. Now that's only my family. Imagine all the other families, how it affected other families. And to be truthful, you find everybody has a story to tell, and you'll find they're all roughly about the same.